Welcome to the Rich Equation podcast, everybody. Today we have Kasey Birdsong, a serial entrepreneur from Birmingham, Alabama. Kasey and I have known each other for about 4 or 5 years, and he is one of the most interesting entrepreneurs I've ever met. He's an incredibly fast learner. He is a servant leader by every aspect of that, and just a really innovative, creative businessman and family man. And so I'm really excited to have him on the podcast. It's absolutely my honor to have you here, Kasey.
Sheesh, buddy. Glad to be here, man. This is exciting.
So Kasey has actually found a couple of companies, but on the very opposite spectrum of what people would think as conventional. He's built and run a technology company, which I'll let him explain a little bit about, and also heads and runs a commercial concrete business that's actually thriving through COVID. And this is the COVID series, Kasey, so we really want to try to get into sort of what's going on with your businesses, what are the challenges that you're having, and how have you overcome? So
absolutely.
Why don't you start kind of giving us a little bit about what's going on with the concrete business, what has happened since COVID, and what's happening?
Yeah, so I'm sure like most of the people that are listening to your podcast now, I mean, when COVID, I never even heard the word COVID, right? So when this all started happening and developing, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what moves to make or what reality was about to become for us. So it was a really uncertain period of time, particularly in the construction business as well. And, we're starting talking about the entire country is shutting down. What is that going to mean for us and our workers and our employees and their families? And, what do we do? How do we prepare for something that no one's ever prepared for? We couldn't go grab a book out of the library or do a search on the internet to see how we, prepare for this, right? So for us, it was a period of time of being a little bit fearful and worried, but at the same time trying to stay resourceful and confident so that our employees who were asking a lot of questions and wondering, so that, we stay in that leadership position so that we could, provide them with a pathway that they felt comfortable with, and ultimately that would, really be the best outcome for everyone. And so that was kind of the initial thoughts for us. And the only way we knew to start about it was to think of it as, an innovation time of let's look at the facts at hand and make really, really quick decisions and analyze those decisions. If we make a company decision related to how we handle COVID, and we need to be able to figure out if it was the wrong decision quickly. And we made some of those calls where, hey, everyone going to stay home this week, right? And then the next thing we know is we are deemed a critical business, or essential business, and so we're allowed to go back to work. And so what do you do then? You have to remessage everyone and get everything scheduled and back on track. So it was definitely a challenging period.
Yeah, that's one thing that was really different about COVID probably than previous business environments, is that the level of communication and the frequency of communication needed to be so spot on, and the messages could change every day, sometimes within the day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
and you have guys out on the field and doing projects, and
it was a time to over communicate. I mean, you said it there. I mean, like, I don't think you could communicate too much to your employees because everyone was so worried in the business. I mean, you didn't know, and you're exactly right. You may send out messaging in the morning time and something else come out from the CDC the same day, and it changes, right? So it was definitely a time where we try to stay in constant communication with all of our leaders and all of our employees, quite frankly.
Well, what I love about you and your business mindset and the way you approach business and strategy is you're such a technology innovation driven entrepreneur, and you think about things about process and efficiency and systems and how to improve every little thing within your companies. How has that changed during COVID? How has that helped you during COVID? Concrete is a business that has been around for a long time, way before you, my friend. And it's an interesting opportunity, right? It's not like concrete can't innovate, or the way that concrete or those types of businesses, I won't even just put that as a category, but service-based businesses, construction-based businesses, those businesses will continue to thrive. They go through their own cycles, but more often than not, they're not abundant with innovation.
Sure.
And you bring that to that party. So tell us why, how, what have you learned? What's the secret sauce? Let's get into that.
Well, I mean, for us, I think a lot of our success pre-COVID as a concrete company has been the fact that we are probably one of the most innovative concrete service contracting companies that I'm aware of, just from my background and my business partners and what we've tried to breathe through the culture. And I think that really helped. That's helped us be successful pre-COVID. But having that framework within our business already established of innovation, and how do you you're constantly looking for what are the friction points in your business, what's slowing you down, what is the thing that's keeping you from going, from good to great in each area. And we try to look at that, constantly look at those friction points and analyze them. And some of the friction points are, we'd love to address that, but it's not that bad right now, right? You can't fix everything at once, but what are the ones that are, and so we have always had that framework. And I think with COVID, it exposed things where you just had to communicate differently. You weren't having large group meetings. Mm-hmm. But we had the framework to how do you tackle those things. So really almost a decision and framework process to work through the new rules. All of a sudden there's new rules that everybody's having to play by, right? And so that framework is really what helped us, I'd say, make the modifications. And just some of the examples are, just reporting. Mm-hmm. A traditional way that a lot of people do is traditional dailies and invoices and what happens on a job site every single day being reported, and someone brings it to the office is simple and handing it to an office admin. We instantly made all that electronic. I mean, that was one of those things that been on the to-do list for a while, but mm-hmm. all of a sudden now it was reprioritized, right? Just keeping people from having to come in and into the office to do that, and handling paper and doing that. So, that just gave a way to keep our employees, we felt like, unnecessary contact, just at least until the time that there was a vaccine and those type things came out. The other part is just, we were already doing virtual meetings. We were already using, products like Slack to communicate in our office. We already had all of our drawings on PlanGrid that was digital. So we were fortunate in that sense because we didn't have a lot of hiccups transitioning to it, which I think a lot of people maybe weren't used to doing Zoom calls, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody quickly learned how to do it. They were forced to. So, I think that's a good thing we learned, was that just maintaining, and if you're a small business and you don't have a framework for innovation, you probably, maybe don't call it a framework now, but if you've made it through COVID, you probably put together some type of process of how to adapt to the conditions. And that, I would just encourage everyone to expand that and really try to have a framework for innovation within the company, of at least getting new ideas to the forefront for evaluation by leadership, to analyze like which items you want to tackle, which items should we try to go and progress and make better for the company.
That's one thing I learned from you for sure is, you can't solve every problem all at the same time, and having a process and a framework to decide, okay, which projects do we get done first? Which ones build on top of the other, right? Using tools like Asana and Slack and mm-hmm. those tools really make those decisions easier. You have a parking lot of innovation ideas that you can then filter
right.
through.
Well, as entrepreneurs, we want to conquer the world in like 3 days, right? It's kind of built into us. And so, you have a list of 100 things. Well, there's only so much time that, you have in a day, that mm-hmm. all your teammates have in a day. And so the most important part is figuring out what is really, what's put first thing first. What's first? And
innovation, you are definitely have that creative mindset of process improvement. Is that top down? Are you instilling that in people every day? Are you like hammering that in, or how do you build a culture for that where it's bottom up?
You listen. Everybody's got to listen. I think some of the best ideas today we tell our guys, hey, if you've got an idea that's different than the way we're doing it, we tell new hires this in the interview process, and a lot of times that gets them excited because they're like, wow, this company, if I do go to work here, they're going to listen to me. And so, some of our best ideas have come from, people that have been with us less than 6 months. They start working for us and they're like, hey, either they bring an idea they've seen before or it's a new idea. And when you do that, your culture's got to know that it's okay to bring new ideas. We're going to listen to them. We're going to evaluate them, but we may not do them.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not understand why we don't do them. And we'll try to share that and be transparent, but we encourage it. Like, bringing ideas is a good thing. And so when people feel like they can do that, you'd be surprised at the little small things that in the busy, of running your business that you may not see that someone brings to you, or you may not even realize what's going on. So I think that's a key component of just instilling in the culture that you can bring ideas to the leadership. And it's encouraged, and also in leadership, you got to listen. Like, listen to what someone's saying and dig in. Why are they bringing that up? Like, what's the real reason that's sparking in them that they think that this could be a good idea for the company?
I remember somebody telling me that the worst thing that can happen in a business is the framework of, we've always done it this way.
Oh.
And I think a lot of people are fearful of change and innovation. I mean, COVID accelerated all of that. You had no choice. But there, even after COVID, like you had said that there was a period of fear and anxiety and unsurety and all this dramatic change. And then it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? Let's start making changes right? Innovation can be destructive. People get concerned. Too much change doesn't get adapted properly. Maybe even a lack of knowledge or knowledge base within the business. What advice do you have to people that maybe intellectually understand that we should make change and innovation, but are nervous or concerned or don't have the right team? What would you say to those people? Because it comes really natural to you. Sorry to interrupt, but like, it comes so natural to you that you don't even think about that. But that's a big problem.
Sure. I mean, I think that my personal experience, like even prior to COVID and innovation, is that you hear it a lot, and people say fail fast, or failure is a good thing, or you see Elon Musk he had a quote recently that says if you're not failing, you're not innovating enough, and I think just for some people, like, they hear the word failure and it terrifies them because they see that as an end point. And so I think sometimes for like entrepreneurs that have been through the process and understand what that fail fast and failing, the word failing really means, it really means findings. Like,
yes,
you're finding something out. You're coming to a finding, or you're coming to a result, and it's not a destination. It's more of a finding. So like, you're running, you're innovating, you're running these small tests. You have a theory of something that maybe could help make the company better. So you're trying to get to a result, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe for those people that word failure gives them a lot of angst, which I know it does me. I don't like to fail, right? But it's more of like, how quickly can we test a theory? How do you do that and make changes and adapt to it? So it's just a series of little experiments, right, to come up with some finding. Maybe not failure, like, findings. But for people that struggle with innovation, I think that the alternative is a lot worse than you have to innovate constantly. And I think that this has forced a lot of people to figure out how to innovate. And we'll see, just like through the financial crisis, I think some of the most innovative and best companies will emerge over the next 2 to 3 years that we've never heard of.
What are the consequences of not innovating?
I mean, you're going to get beat by your competitors, probably. I mean, if you've got a competitor, which almost everyone does, many of them, if you don't innovate, at some point, the landscape that you're in, an environment you're working in, is going to change to where your model that has worked or has been working just will not work anymore. We've seen it with all types of companies, right? Somebody reminded me of a VCR repair shop the other day. They're like 15 years ago, this guy had a VCR repair shop and was just raking it in because everybody had VCRs, right? And just to get a VCR repaired, this guy was making, 20 years ago, he was making $75 an hour. Well, nobody owns a VCR anymore, right? So what if he's still trying to repair VCRs? He never progressed his business or just said, no, I'm going to stick it out and keep doing it the way I've been doing it and keep fixing VCRs. He wouldn't be doing very well, right? So I think that's kind of it's a loose analogy, but I think that
no, you're right.
You have to innovate and adapt. I mean, to me, I see those two words are very similar.
Right. It's so funny how talk about this together all the time that you could go from feeling like the world is completely in your favor and thriving, and then literally 6 seconds later, everything's falling apart and you are going to die. And then 12 seconds later, back to like, oh my God, I think I got the biggest break ever and we're just going to conquer the world. Like, why does that happen? What's going on in our minds that give entrepreneurs that sort of roller coaster ride? Which I think a lot of people, and the reason why I want to get into that is because I think that if we can understand really what's going on in the mindset of that, we can become better entrepreneurs and people can adapt to change and innovation and things not going your way better. What's that about?
Man, I tell you, I thought about this a lot, and I don't have the full answer, but for me, I think part of it is I think as entrepreneurs we care so much, and we're so invested into every single thing about our business that just one small thing goes wrong, or it could be a larger thing goes wrong. It just crushes us. We're so focused on it, we care about it so much that we forget that there's 99 other things that are great and things to be thankful for. But it's at the forefront, and just I think training your mind and yourself to be disciplined, and you just know that it's a journey. Like that bad thing or that good thing, right? That good thing, realizing that those are to be celebrated, but it is a journey in all of them. None of those are a final destination. It's just, you know what I mean? It's one stop sign to where we're going, right? So,
well, I want to go down this journey because you started a technology company a handful of years ago, and a company that didn't really exist in the space. You were sort of blue ocean strategy with this new idea that you had, and I'd love you to tell a little bit about like what the idea was and where it manifested, right, on the softball fields of the elementary school. So I'd love you to tell a little bit about that story. Yeah. But the reason why I want to go there is because I think that people need to hear, and everyone's going through their own journey, and many listeners have an idea or want to take the leap, but they get concerned about the risk of failing. They get concerned that 9 out of 10 people think that their idea is bad. They maybe don't have the skill set or the knowledge base to take their idea and make it grow and make it come to fruition. Maybe they think so far ahead of like, oh my God, this could be $100 million idea and blah, 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 but don't know how to take 3 steps forward.
Sure.
So I know I've experienced that. I know you've experienced it. Let's go down that path.
Let's dive into it. Yeah. So, I mean, like most, I guess, entrepreneur ventures, it comes out of a need, the idea. So my daughter was on a t-ball team, and the coaches were wanting to raise money for the t-ball team. And my wife happened to be the team mom. And what they'd done previously was sell donuts. You know, you go around and you harass all your neighbors and coworkers to buy these overpriced donuts, right? And it's for the cute kids. And you show them pictures, and
I love it.
and people then start getting out their pocketbook. But doing that, parents just don't enjoy it. And so all the parents on the team really went to my wife and said, "Can we do something different than a donut fundraiser? Can we try something more innovative?" And So she wrote me into helping her think of something. So the first thought was, all right, we'll go out and talk to local restaurants and retail places to see if they want to buy a sign. We're going to put it in the outfield, and we're going to charge them, $300 to $400 for that. And that's what we'll do. And so I started approaching these merchants, and I was blown away by the response of how much they got bombarded, and people coming, schools, sports teams, t-ball teams, everything you can think of. These like local businesses, which are like the pillar of the community, right? I mean, they're there, the grocery stores and restaurants. People just come and ask them for a lot of stuff for free, a lot of money, and they're trying to run their business. So, it creates the interruption, but they also know those same people as their customers. But them just giving everybody $500 here and there, like at some point they have to start saying no, or you have to, as a business owner, think about your ROI. So that was really the birth of the idea, which was Planet Fundraiser, which was a platform and an app to where people could earn cash back at participating merchants when they went and shopped there. So merchants said, you know what? It was really the idea I had. So, well, what if people come shop here? Would you be willing to give cash back or percentage? And they said for their loyalty, sure. Someone comes in here and spends $100 taking their family out to dinner. Sure, I'll give 5% back. I'll give $5 back to their T-ball team. And so we created a platform that was able to digitize all of that and allow people to go shop there and instantly be tracked, and the money go back to support really what they care about. It didn't matter, and as a participant, you could care about different things. So that was the idea. How we got there was, you come up with some grand idea, then you really need to validate it, right? And before going to spend a lot of money. And so what we did was, how can we validate this idea? Like, how can we at least test it to see that
Step one is coming up with data. Step two is validating it.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we prove it?
Yeah. And, so the process that we had was, one, go talk to a lot of people. Like, having conversations pretty much don't cost you anything, right? It's free. So go talk to family and friends, but then talk to people that you don't know. Talk to strangers about your idea, because family and friends, they'll tell you things are a great idea a lot of times because they love you. Right? The stranger on this, strangers, they'll give you pretty honest feedback. The key person to go talk to is the person that you're going to ask money from. So go talk to who your end customer would be if you created this new world or whatever you created, right? So we went and started talking to a lot of business owners and restaurants and retail locations and saying, if we built this, would this be a better solution to what you're experiencing right now? And we got pretty overwhelming yes, that they saw it as a solution. And so, step two would be validating it. And that's what we did. And
then building a MVP to make sure that it actually worked and people would pay. And
so that's this is, the innovation part of it. It was, okay, how can we somehow, use duct tape and bubble gum to put together a test? Like, how can we do it without going and, getting a second mortgage on our house to test this thing? And we decided, well, let's print off some business cards and find a school to pass these out and promote. And we found a local school, said, hey, they're having a football pep rally. If we can get a couple of restaurants that'll give 10% back for people coming to shop there, we'll do all the work. We'll set it up. But then can you guys pass these cards out to students and parents and let them know if they go shop at this place after this week's pepper rally, they'll earn 10% back for their football team? And they did that. And we had a great turnout. And that was the very first test of we may be onto something here. The response.
The business idea is so cool. Just to make everyone really clear, how much technology experience did you have up to that point? When I mean technology, I mean really a tech startup-y type of, not I know how to use Outlook.
Right. No, I'd helped my wife build a website for a little retail business she had, clothing retail. But besides that, that was it.
That was it. So zero innovation, coding, tech startup experience. And within a relatively short amount of time, a couple of years, maybe 2 years, How many users within your geography?
We had over 60,000 users, over 1,000 active groups, which were anything from local bands, churches, local organizations, American Cancer Society, or some of those larger type organizations, all the way down to the T-ball teams and different sports teams at schools.
What was one of the most important things you learned in that process as you were trying to figure out your formula? Because in the early stages, there's so much change.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are like working, not working. You're spending money. Yeah. You're burning cash. Like, what did you learn that other people could prevent from experiencing the same thing?
Yeah. Don't assume you know anything.
That's so good. I love that.
Don't assume that you have the answers to anything. Like, because we're all preconditioned differently, right? We all grew up in a different situation. We're all biased. We're all biased. And so, ultimately, the market wins and the market's right? So, like, and I say market, like your customer base. Like, what's going to fuel your business? And the most important thing, I think, is understanding in the early days, because your customer base is going to change as you grow, right? But who's your target customer at that early stage? Talk to them, know them, try to you have to understand that customer, and any assumptions you make, if they're wrong, they're just too costly. You've got to really, really understand your customer and what they're looking for.
Well, to go full circle, one of the things you learned in COVID was to listen to your employees, right? And so not assuming we know anything and really listening to our team, listening to our customer, adapting to what's going on based on what we hear rather than what we think. Mm-hmm. There's a real good lesson there.
Yeah, 100%. Because things that may not concern us could be very concerning to your employees.
Now, I've known Kasey for a long time, and yes, you are a serial entrepreneur, but you have a really amazing, strong why and why you do what you do. Can you share with people why you spend 68 hours a week working your ass off, working your butt off so hard for what result?
This may sound like a pie in the sky thing, but I think that, like, to me, I put it as a duty, just like, it's overarching why is just to leave a mark on the world that results in it being better than I found it. That's kind of the big why. Like, if that could be building a business that provides for people's family, or making a lasting impact, or that creates some ripple that makes this place better than it was yesterday, then I'm happy. I'm doing what I like to do.
And I ask this question to everybody that's on the podcast: is what is the rich equation for you? What does it mean to be rich, Kasey? To you?
I think it's kind of multi-layered, but I think the first layer is that yourself and your family and dearest friends are living healthy. Mm-hmm. They don't have any needs that aren't getting fulfilled. Not wants, needs, right? That aren't, things that are, that you need to have, that are essential for having a healthy and happy lifestyle. I think that's the first layer. If those are fulfilled, then I think it expands out. Then rich is being able to wake up every morning and go to sleep every night, just being happy and very, very satisfied with what you have, and thankful, understanding a blessing it is for things that get overlooked. And so I think it's having yourself and the ones you care most about, that they're in some place that they feel that content. I think that's being pretty rich if you can provide that, and you can create an environment where you feel like everyone's living that way.
Being a serial entrepreneur, there's a trap. People think that you're always trying to build the best, biggest business, make a ton of money, and all you said was be happy with the people that you're around. You spend so many hours working all the time. That's in conflict. What's going on?
Well, I mean, I do work those 70-hour weeks, but I also I do a lot of 2 and 3 days off with the family. So, I think it's counterbalancing. Mm-hmm. When you're at work, you work. Mm-hmm. You focus on the work. You're productive. You get it done. And when you're with family and friends, you're with family and friends. So when you're at work, you work. When you're with family and friends, you turn the work off, and you have to counterbalance. You have seasons where, hey, I've told my wife before, the next 2 months, you're not gonna see me a lot, unfortunately. But when we do see each other, we're gonna make the best out of it. And then when those seasons are over, then it's, hey, let's go on a week and a half or a week vacation together. And guess what? We're gonna turn it off. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the counterbalance, and that's the only way that I've been able to balance. Because you're right, and it makes you appreciate it a lot more too.
And things do come in seasons. I've been using that way more frequently than I have ever done before. They're like, what is the season I'm in? What is this a work season? Is this a personal time season? Is this a self-care season? And that's real. There are ebbs and flows of time that you need to focus on certain things, and routines need to change and adjust and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, is communicating them is key. I mean, sometimes there are seasons that are unexpected, right? That something happens catastrophically, and then you have to go to the family and say, hey, I've got to work late every night this week. I apologize. Next week, once I get this behind me, I'm going to be home flipping burgers and cooking for everyone, right? But and fortunately, I think if you communicate that, you'll get the grace. Hopefully, everyone does that my family gives me sometimes. But yeah, it's a season, and I think the key is making it not where the season is permanent. When you can counterbalance and spend time and take a little time off to recharge your batteries, everybody needs that. Do that as well. Take your foot off the gas every once in a while.
Yeah, you're such a wise guy, and so many people connect to you so naturally. What is it about your character that makes you so warm and people gravitate toward you, brother?
Oh man,
you're like a super connector.
Very kind words. I don't know. I will say,
I wish I had 10% of what you have there in that regard.
I think I don't know. I guess being yourself. That's what people have told me. Like I don't ever really change. Pretty much the same. Pretty comfortable in my own skin.
Yes, you are.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but I've had you're being very kind with your words, but I've had many people just say, "Hey, you're always the same." And being consistent.
And what is one of the most challenging things you're going through right now? What keeps you up at night? What is one thing that is really toiling at you, either personally or professionally?
Professionally, right now we're in a season of growth. Mm-hmm. Is hiring and having the best people on the team.
Yeah.
And I think, as our business is growing, we're fortunate to already have a nice backlog when COVID came. And so this year we're on track. We grew by over 60% in 2020. And this year we're on track to double in size. So we're hiring. Just this morning, we hired 2 new people starting today in our office prior to this call. And I think for me is, you can have the right people in the wrong seat. Mm-hmm. And the key, I think, is having the right people in the right seat. So are we hiring the right people, and are we putting them in the right seat? I think that's professionally where I'm spending a lot of my time and energy right now.
That's so good. I think I'm good. Do you have anything else you want to share with people?
The only thing I would say is, don't be afraid of innovation. And if the word failure is one of those words that makes you cringe when you hear about, hey, innovate and you got to fail, think about it as a finding. Think about it as you're just getting to a result that's going to let you, to figure out what's good, you got to know what's bad. And so look at it as you're finding out the stuff that you don't need to be doing. And sometimes that's as important as finding out the good stuff, knowing what you should not be doing, what's not working, and something that you shouldn't be focusing on.
Well, Kasey Birdsong, thank you so much. What I got out of today was that you really got to learn how to listen, and you have to assume that you don't know everything, and listen to your customers, listen to your teams, listen to your employees, and have the right people in the right seat.
Well put.
So good.
I agree.
We'll put all your social links and how to find you within the podcast links. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And any listeners out there, I'm an open book. Feel free to reach out.